So this class is only chapter 9. So if you didn't read the textbook, you better catch up with the chapter now, okay? All right, so lifespan development, meaning from conception to death, all right? What shapes the way we change over time? Do we change over time? Yes, how? How do we change? Age? Personality? Puberty? Very good. Yes. Physically we change. Mentally we change, right? Emotionally, right? Okay. Biologically, okay. Focus on psychological changes across the entire lifespan. So when your mother conceived you until the day you die, all right? Every area of psych can be looked at from this perspective. So biological development, social development, cognitive, perceptual development, personality development, okay? All can be looked from developmental cycle, lifespan, okay? We have 8 stages of the lifespan, okay? Stage 1 is prenatal, conception to birth, infancy 0 to 2 years old, early childhood 2 to 6, middle childhood 6 to 12, adolescence 12 to 18. Some of you might be still in adolescence, right? This class, because you guys are young. Young adulthood 18 to 40, and some of you are in young adulthood, okay? Middle adulthood, that's my stage, all right? And late adulthood, okay? Those are 8 stages. Remember nature versus nurture we talked about in chapter 1, okay? What is role of heredity versus environment in determining psychological makeup? Because remember, nature is what? Nature is what? Biological, right? And then nurture is environmental. Very good. One of the questions I ask you is IQ inherited or determined by early environment?
Both.
Both. Marvin, very good. Why it's both?
Because you have things that you didn't learn already, a part of you, but you still have to learn things about your environment.
Right. Very good answer. Because we have genes to be passed on. So you might be already smart to begin with, but because environment is more nurturing too, that they give you books and then, you know, those exercises, like you have good environment to read the books or use educational types more often, that can help them to develop IQ there too. Yes. Is there a criminal gene? Why do you say no? You said no too.
So because if one of our parents go to jail, that can affect how you react. Or how
Right, it's more environmental, right? And are any babies criminals to begin with? No. But what happens if the parents had antisocial personality disorder? The baby might be vulnerable to have that disorder if it was biologically caused. So is that the possibility that they might have criminal genes because they might have antisocial personality disorder? That's possible, right? Although nobody is criminals to begin with. But because of their mental health issues, they might have this vulnerability to be criminals based on their medical conditions. Possible, right? All right. Is sexual orientation a choice or genetically determined? Why do you say both? That's the right answer.
Because there's some people that are born with the both parts, and then their parents could choose whether they get one or the other.
Right. Very good. You remember from my lecture. Excellent. Okay. They can have 2 sex organs, one female, one male. But the parents have to decide which sex to be assigned to the baby. But then, right. Okay. But some people make choices based on their past experiences. They might have had bad experiences before, and then they decided to change their sex orientation. That's possible too, right? There are cases like that, all right? Okay, so these are some of our greatest societal debates because there is no clear-cut answers for those questions, all right? Very good. Mistake to pose as either or questions too, because as you know, all know, it's both. genes and environment both affect us, okay? All right. Another question we have is development continuous? Development means change, as you know, and change can be abrupt or gradual. So we have two views of human development. One is stage theories. They are distinct phases to intellectual and personality development, meaning you have to complete one stage to move on to the next stage. Continuity development is continuous, so no clear-cut stages. All right, so there are two main views. Then we have critical period. Okay, it's very human developmental psych topic. There are periods when an individual is particularly sensitive to certain environmental experiences. And I'll give you some examples. The first hours after birth critical for parent-child bonding. Nobody has kids in this classroom, right? Oh, you do? Okay. The first hours after birth critical for parent-child bonding? Absolutely, right? That's the time they have bonding because your child was growing in your womb, and then finally the baby is here, and then can see, touch, smell, everything, right? Okay, so it's very important. Is first year critical for developing trust?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Why do you say so?
Because the child is learning that you need parent, like if your parent doesn't come, like when you're crying or you're hungry, they don't know what trust is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They have to learn what trust means.
But obviously the person that's coming and feeding them and, changing them and washing them is someone that they trust.
Right,
because
exactly.
Just like when a stranger holds them, sometimes they get scared and
Right,
cry.
right.
They don't know them, and they've learned to trust their parents.
Exactly. They
Whoever
have to
the
build the
caretaker is.
trusting relationship. Very good. So, and then babies don't know yet. So that's how they have to learn. Very good. Right on. Okay. Is it easier to learn a language before age 10? Yes, absolutely. Why do you say that? It's more natural, right? It's more natural. Because your brain is not fully developed yet, it's easier for them to grab the concept and then observe the new information. I can still learn the new language as of today if I want to, but it's going to be much harder than when I was young, like before 10 years old, okay? So, there's an overview of genetics, okay? It's like chapter 2, but it's just overview and it's psych class, so don't worry about it. Humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, okay? Chromosomes are long twisted strands of DNA. How many of you have seen DNA evidence on like TV shows, right? DNA, yeah. DNA is the chemical basis of heredity and carries instructions. So with like a piece of hair or like shows like, yes, CSI or Law and Order, okay, they swab it and then they just get the DNA information, all right? So genes are the basic unit of heredity, so single unit of DNA on the chromosome too, all right? All right, so we have different types of genes, okay? Dominant and recessive genes, genotype or genotype, underlining genetic makeup, and phenotype or traits that are expressed. Meaning, dominant genes will always be expressed if present, okay? Then recessive genes will not be expressed unless they are in a pair. Yes? I haven't seen that show yet. Nope. Is it the new show or it has been running a long time?
Yeah, it's been forever. John and Kate, they have the 8 kids because they had the 6 tuplets, the 2 twins. Yeah. And they got divorced, that whole thing.
Yeah, I have heard about that them, but I haven't seen the show.
Now it's just Kate plus 8 because they got divorced. So, yeah.
So, for instance, the dominant meaning, if you have brown already to begin with, it's the dominant. So you have brown eyes. But if you have recessive genes, it was paired, okay, matched, then you might have gray or blue eye color. But if you didn't, you have brown. That's what it means, all right?
Even the people that both have blue eyes, if their parents had brown, sometimes that'll be still dominant.
Right, exactly. because generation-wise, it's always like different generations. So for instance, grandparents had brown, then the grandchildren might have brown because that can be a dominant genes passed on.
Like my dad, both his parents have blue eyes, but his were brown because their parents, one of them.
Yeah, had brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, because brown is the dominant genes. Okay.
And how come if something's dominant, how come you do get blue sometimes?
Because recessive genes can be matched if it's paired, but it's just by chance. So, for instance, my in-laws, my father-in-law had blue eyes, he passed away. My mother-in-law has brown eyes. My husband has hazel. My sisters-in-law, I have 4 sisters-in-law. One has blue, one has brown, one has another hazel. So it's mixed because it changes over time. Hormonal change, genes, okay, very good guys. So sex-linked traits, okay, traits linked to the X or Y chromosomes. So usually recessive and carried on the X chromosome, that's why everybody is female at the beginning, but once it's matched X and Y, then it can be a male, all right? So that's what it is. Then it appears more frequently in one sex than another. So color blindness, which sex has more than the other? Male. Yeah. Baldness, male. Hemophilia,
Female.
yep. Fragile X, female. Okay.
What is
Do you want to? Fragile X meaning the X chromosome is not very healthy. So it can cause some health issues. All right. Physical development begins at conception. Okay. So physical maturity sets limits on psychological ability too. So for instance, visual system not fully functional at birth. So babies cannot see the clear pictures yet. Although they can see like a shapes, and then they can hear you well, but not the visual system. Language system not functional until much later, around 2 years old, and sometimes 3 years old, okay? Prenatal environment can have lifetime influence on health and intellectual ability, all right? So, conception, when a sperm penetrates the ovum, and then zygote, meaning a fertilized egg, and we have 3 periods, okay? Germinal period, first 2 weeks after conception, embryonic period, weeks 3 through 8 after conception, and fetal period 2 months after conception until birth. Okay, so miscarriages usually happens, usually those 2 periods, and it's not that uncommon. It can be 1 out of 5. Then nutrition, anxiety, mother's general health, maternal age, teratogens too. So how nutrition is related to prenatal development? Help it or hurt?
Like if you're a drug addict and you're like using while you're pregnant,
Yep.
it can cause birth defects.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Marvin. I'm not affected, but so.
Right,
and then,
you're
like,
right.
Things like that too.
Right. How about anxiety? If the mother is anxious, is it a good thing for the baby's health? No. Yeah, stress is not good at all. Okay, very good.
Even like how much they eat. If they eat too much, sometimes it can
Right.
be bad. If they don't eat enough, it can be bad.
Right, exactly. How about mother's general health?
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? If the mother is healthy, babies tend to be healthy too, all right? Teratogens such as drugs, radiation, viruses can cause some problems for both of them, mother and the child too. All right, so infant abilities. Infants are born with immature visual system, as I told you. Can detect movement and large objects, but they can't see the clear picture yet. Other senses function well on day 1 though. We orient to sounds, turn away from unpleasant odors, and prefer sweet to sour taste. And then born with a number of reflex behaviors. Before I talk about reflexes, visual system, have you seen any baby books before? It has only black, white, and then red for the first like 2 months. You know why we have red first? Remember we talked about visual system? It's a combination of 3 colors, right? Because 3 phosphors, remember? Blue, green, and red.
Right.
So red is more easy for the babies to see as a color. Then they develop more green and blue and a mix of them. That's why, all right? So infant reflexes, rooting, turning the head and opening the mouth in the direction of a touch on the cheek. So if you touch the baby's cheek, they turn around with the mouth open, okay? Sucking rhythmically in response to oral stimulation, like pacifier, okay? Then Babinski, fanning and curling toes when foot is stroked, okay? Moral, throwing the arms out, arching the back and bringing the arms together as if to hold on to something in response to loud noise or sudden change in position of the head. That's they usually do. And those reflexes usually disappear around 12 months, all right? And grasping, curling the fingers around an object too. They try to hold, but they can't hold it yet, but they try to curl their fingers, all right? Then infant attachment, okay? Intense emotional bond between infant and caregiver, all right? So we have temperament too. The baby has easy temperament or difficult temperament, but easy is adaptable, positive mood, regular habits. Slow to warm up temperament, low activity, somewhat slow to adapt, generally withdraw from new situations. And difficult one is intense emotions, irritable, cry frequently, and average, unable to classify. 1/3 of the children are average. And then even the good kids with easy temperament can have difficult times too. So it's a combination, all right? Then Ainsworth's strange situation, okay? Mother-child diets were observed in the playroom under 4 conditions. So initial mother-child interaction, the mother leaves infant alone in playroom, and the friendly stranger enters playroom, and then mother returns and greets child. That was the scenario. That's the situation, all right? So Ainsworth and others found different forms of attachment based on that study, okay? One is called securely attached, explores the room when mother is present, but becomes upset and explores less when mother is not present, but shows pleasure when mother returns. That's securely attached, all right? Another one is called avoidantly attached, a form of insecure attachment in which child avoids mother and acts coldly to her, okay? Anxious resistant attachment, a form of insecure attachment where the child remains close to mother and remains distressed despite her attempts to comfort. So different types of or forms of attachment like that. Language development similar across cultures. We have different morphemes, like smallest meaningful units of language. We have content, grammatical ones, nouns, verbs, articles, conjunctions, and so forth, all right? But more importantly, okay, infant preference for human speech over other sounds because they heard the caregiver's voices.
Right, in that first time.
Right. So before 6 months, okay, the babies can hear all the differences used in all languages. And after 6 months, they begin to hear only differences used in native language. But it's not always true, because the recent studies have shown that if the parents kept using different languages in their household, after 6 months, they can still distinguish the differences. Like my kids, okay? All 3 kids can see the differences right away when I start speaking Japanese. And then my youngest and the middle ones just pick up right away. My son refused to use Japanese right now. It's his age. He says, "No Japanese, please, Mom." Fine.
Cute. Your son is so cute.
But he likes drawing, like writing Japanese, but not speaking. He refused to speak Japanese. But once he's into writing like letters in Japanese,
Is it
he's
'cause in
brilliant.
school and just, like,
Right,
constant-
exactly. And the other 2 daughters, they love speaking in Japanese. They especially my middle one, she just switched right away without me telling her. Like her switch is on and off, like normally, like just naturally. Cooing, vowel sounds produced 2 to 4 months, babbling, consonant vowel sounds between 4 to 6 months. Even deaf infants coo and babble. Remember, we have different language center in your brain. They cannot hear, but they can still make the sounds. Remember that? So that's standardized, okay? Cooing 2 months, and then 1 word stage is 12 months, about a year. about 2 years old, 2-word stage, and 2 years plus sentences. And sometimes boys don't speak much until they're like 3, and that's normal. They tend to be late with language. Usually that's the case, okay? It doesn't mean that all the boys tend to be late or all the girls tend to be early. It's just a general tendency. And then Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Jean Piaget was a Swiss psychologist who became leading theorist in 30s. He believed that children are active thinkers, constantly trying to construct more advanced understandings of the world. And these understandings are in the form of structures he called schemas. Remember schema from chapter 7? So primary method was to ask children to solve problems and to question them about the reasoning behind their solutions. He discovered that children think in radically different ways than adults. How many of you have seen Bill Cosby's show? He asked the questions to the kids, and the kids say something really funny. Yes, because their thinking is so different from adults, so they say something really funny or radical, okay? So he proposed that development occurs as a series of stages differing in how the world is understood, and I'll explain more, okay? We have 4 stages. Sensory motor stage is the first one, birth to 2. Information is gained through the senses and motor actions. So in this stage, child perceives and manipulates but does not reason yet. You see the kids having like a toy, they manipulate but they cannot reason why toy is working that way. The same thing with the language too, all right? And same thing about the thinking process too. So in this stage, symbols become internalized through language development too. Object permanence is acquired. The understanding that object exists independent of one's actions or perceptions of them. So the babies drop the toy, they think it's gone forever. All right? But after 6 months, they know that although the toy is not seen by them because it's dropped, they know that it's over there. Make sense to you? That's object permanence, okay? Before 6 months, infants act as if objects removed from sight cease to exist. That's why it makes sense to you now. Babies can be surprised by peekaboo because when we cover our face, the baby thinks that the face is gone forever. But when then they reappear, that's the concept of object permanence, okay?
It's so excited.
Exactly. Then the second stage is called pre-operational stage. That's the emergence of symbolic thought, centration, egocentrism, lack the concept of conservation, animism, and artificialism. So what is centration, guys? Can you guess? It's the similar meaning of egocentrism, but it's different. You know what egocentrism is, right? It's me, 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 right? So what is centration?
You said it's the opposite?
No, it's similar, but it's slightly different. Can you tell me the difference?
It's just about one thing.
Right,
Ego
me.
is about me. It's
But
about yourself. Centrism would be about one thing, so is the child being
Centration meaning they focus on only one thing. They can't see the alternatives. So it's related to egocentrism, but it's not about me, me, me. Right.
They only want to play with that
Yeah,
toy.
in that way. Yep, very good. And lack the concept of conservation is meaning one glass is taller than the other, so it has more milk in it. That's it. What is animism? What is artificialism? It's similar, but it's different again. What is animism, guys? So nobody read chapter 9, huh? How many of you thought that the moon is chasing you when you're a child? Like, yeah, like the other day, my kids, right, in the car after I picked them up from daycare, they say, "Mama, Mama." I said, "What's going on, honey?" They all said, 3 of them said, "The moon is chasing us, following us." I said, "Honey, it's called animism," and I explained. They're like, "Ah, they got it," but that's animism. Or, the trees make noises with wind, they think they're talking. So that's artificialism, all right? So conservation, number first. You know that they're 10 pennies. All right? The kids think that this one has more money than this one.
Because they're spread out.
That's because it's spread out. Okay? Lengths too. It's the same length, but they think one is longer than the other because it's not evenly set. Okay. Then substance too, right here. The clay, amount of clay, they think one has more than the other because the shape is different, although it's the same amount of clay. All right. Then concrete operational stage. That's the third stage, 7 to 12 years old. Understanding of mental operations leading to increasingly logical thought. So if I hit my friend, it's going to hurt him. They can think logically like that. Classification and categorization too. And they tend to be much less egocentric, but they cannot reason abstractly or hypothetically yet. Okay? Not yet. Then the last stage is called formal operational stage, age 12 to adulthood. We should be able to hypothetical deductive reasoning. So abstract thinking and deductive reasoning, meaning from general to specific. Remember from chapter 7? And adolescence egocentrism illustrated by the phenomenon of personal fable and imaginary audience. Also another term is called pseudo-stupidity. So there are 3 terms. So what is personal fable? Anybody?
When it comes
Their own little story.
convenience to you.
It's like their own personal story, like that they made up in their heads. They believe is true.
Well, it's related to both imaginary audience about what you said. But personal fable meaning the experience you have been through is so unique that no one can understand it. Or anything about will happen because they are special. That's what personal fable means. Imaginary audience, as the term says, imaginary audience. They think that they are watching you constantly, right? So let's say there is an adolescent girl who was wearing a nice white shirt, and then she had a very tiny ketchup stain, and then she kept thinking, oh my God, everybody thinks that I'm such an idiot to have the ketchup on my, but then nobody sees it. That's imaginary audience. The last term that it's not included here, but although you should know, is called pseudo-stupidity. Adolescents are not stupid, but they act like they are stupid. Make sense? All right. So there's some critique of Piaget's theory, okay? It is unfortunately true that he underestimated children's abilities and overestimated the age differences in thinking, okay? Vagueness about the process of change, underestimated the role of the social environment, that's the biggest one. Lack of evidence for qualitatively different stages. Okay. Vygotsky, that's very important. He's a Russian psychologist who unfortunately died at a young age, and then nobody basically paid attention to what he said until like mid-90s or something like that, okay? So Vygotsky said children learn from interactions with other people. All right. Zone of proximal development, meaning what the child can do by interacting with another person but can't do alone. So critical thinking based on dialogue with others who challenge the ideas. So they can do it with just a little help from others. All right. That's what Vygotsky said. We can challenge the kids to understand better too. All right. Piaget focused on children's interaction with the physical world, but not the social interaction. Social action meaning interacting with other people. All right. So for the daycare setting, daycare teachers and other friends can interact with that child. They learn more because of the interactions. Make sense to you? So the other one, what are the issues? Individuals develop socially. How do social relationships develop? What factors drive social development? What is the social relationship, guys? What is it? Friends? Very good. If you are at school, right? What's the relationship between you and your professors?
Teacher to student.
Yeah, teacher to student. That's one of the social relationships. And then your classmates.
Student to student.
Yeah, student to student, right? And then how about your family members? That's another social relationships, right? Yeah, absolutely. But the friends too. Definitely friendships are social relationships. Very good. So we can develop socially by biological, culture, and cognitive factors. All right, I'll explain more. So Erik Erikson, who developed the 8 stages of social development, okay? So biologically, in belief that there are innate drives to develop social relationships and that these promote survival, okay? So he divided lifespan into 8 psychosocial stages, each associated with a different drive and the problem or crisis to resolve. So outcome of each stage varies along a continuum from positive to negative, all right? Stage 1, trust versus mistrust. Infants must rely on others for care. Consistent and then dependable caregiving and meeting infant needs leads to a sense of trust. But infants who are not well cared for will develop mistrust. So it's one positive, one negative. Then autonomy versus shame and doubt, 1 to 3 years, okay? Children are discovering their own independence. Those given the opportunity to experience independence will gain a sense of autonomy, independence. But children that are overly restrained or punished harshly will develop shame and doubt. So balance is the key, guys, right? Then stage 3 to 5, initiative versus guilt. Children are exposed to the wider social world and given greater responsibility. So sense of accomplishment leads to initiative, whereas feelings of guilt can emerge if the child is made to feel too anxious or irresponsible. All right? Then stage 4, industry versus inferiority. Stage of life surrounding mastery of knowledge and intellectual skills. So sense of competence and achievement leads to industry. They have more self-esteem, right? Feeling incompetent and unproductive leads to inferiority. Then stage 5, adolescence, identity versus confusion. Developing a sense of who one is and where one is going in life. Successful resolution leads to positive identity. But unsuccessful resolution leads to identity confusion or negative identity. Okay? Then most of you are in this stage too. Stage 6, young adulthood, intimacy versus isolation. Time for sharing oneself with another person. Capacity to hold commitments with others leads to intimacy, or failure to establish commitments leads to feeling of isolation. All right, so positive or negative again. Then stage 7, my stage, middle adulthood, generativity versus stagnation. Caring for others in family, friends, and work leads to sense of contribution to later generations. On the other hand, stagnation comes from a sense of boredom and meaninglessness. Okay? Then the last stage, late adulthood to death. Integrity versus despair. Okay? Successful resolutions of all previous crises leads to integrity and ability to see broad truths and advise those in earlier stages. On the other hand, despair arises from feelings of helplessness and the bitter sense that life has been incomplete. So those are the 8 stages. Then some definitions. Sex is the biological category of male or female, or sexual intercourse. Gender is the cultural, social, and psychological meanings associated with masculinity or femininity. So they are different. Sex is biological oriented. Gender is social concept. Gender roles, behaviors, attitudes, and personality traits designated either masculine or feminine in a given culture. Gender identity, a person's psychological sense of being male or female, and sexual orientation, direction of a person's emotional and erotic attractions. Those are the definitions, all right? So, gender role stereotypes, okay? The beliefs and expectations people hold about the typical characteristics, preferences, and behaviors of men and women. So in the US, okay, men and women view the female stereotype more positively than the male stereotype. This is called benevolent sexism, okay? If it's true or not, okay? And there is a high degree of agreement on the characteristics associated with each sex among people of many different cultures, okay? Gender-related differences Differences do not mean deficiencies, okay? But we might have three main areas of gender differences: personality, cognitive ability, and sexual attitudes and behaviors, right? There are some gender stereotypes across cultures, okay? So some characteristics associated with males, for instance, cool, masculine, logical, independent, forceful, dominant, stern, strong, tough, unemotional. Those are the male characteristics, okay? But they are stereotypes. On the other hand, female characteristics, okay? Affected, affectionate, anxious, attractive, charming, complaining, dependent, sexy, sensitive, meek, fussy, fearful, emotional, okay, timid, whiny, talkative, submissive. What do you think? It's definitely not true, right? Have you seen any independent, strong woman before? Yes, of course. Have you seen sensitive, sexy guy before? Maybe yes, right? So those are stereotypes, meaning it can be true or not true, okay? But as you can see, very stereotypical, without really understanding each person having those characteristics, okay? All right. So personality differences. No significant differences between men and women on most characteristics. But women tend to be more nurturing than men, and men tend to be more assertive than women. Why is that? Genetics? Can you explain a little bit more? Okay. But some physical differences?
I guess, yeah.
Yeah?
Because, like, women never had babies.
Right, exactly. Good. See, you knew. You knew it. Women become mothers, and then they become more nurturing because they have to take care of the babies. Men tend to be more assertive because they're the ones financially they have to bring income in, while mothers tend to take care of the kids. All right, that's why. But it's more like traditional, more old-fashioned way, because women go out to work nowadays too. They tend to be more independent too.
There's a mother that's also mother and father.
Absolutely. And sometimes, homestay dads too. There are some people who decide to stay as dad, like housewife, but they are males, and that's fine. It's their choices, right? Okay. All right. Good. Then cognitive differences. No differences for most cognitive abilities. Verbal, reading, and writing, females consistently score higher though. On the other hand, spatial skills, males outscore females on mentally rotating objects. Females score better on remembering locations of objects. And math skills, males score slightly better than females. Do you think those are true? The first one maybe? All right. Spatial skills. What do you think? Is that true too? Like mentally rotating object, so you have to think in your head basically how the shapes can be with those, moving objects. All right? Math too, but slightly better because we have this stereotypical ideas that, women are better with like English language, and the men are better with mathematics rather than English, okay? It's not true, but we tend to be biased because there was an experiment, okay? The teacher came in, professor came in, and told the students that, with this mathematics course, we didn't find any gender differences. And then females scored as high as men for males for the mathematics test. Second time, the same professor came, different students, and they said, with this mathematics test, females tended to score a little bit lower than males. And guess what happens? Females scored a little bit less than males did. All right? So it's kind of stereotypical. Okay? We can be influenced by those bad stereotypical ideas or stereotypes. Okay? Then gender role development. Between ages 2 to 3 years, children can identify themselves and other children as boys or girls. The concept of gender or sex, however, is based more on outward characteristics such as clothing, okay? So toddler girls tend to play more with dolls and ask for help more than boys. On the other hand, toddler boys tend to play more with trucks and wagons and tend to play more actively, okay? And after age 3 years, we see consistent gender differences in preferred toys and activities. It's related to gender role expectations from parents too, right? Boys, like baby boys should wear like blue and baby girls should wear pink, right? Although I'm not agreeing with that at all, but that's kind of societal norm, right? Okay. That's related to this gender role development too. Okay. Then sexual development, okay? Puberty, stage where an individual reaches sexual maturity and is physically capable of sexual reproduction. And primary sex characteristics, sex organs directly involved in reproduction. Secondary sex characteristics develop during puberty, not directly involved in reproduction, but distinguish male from female. And adolescence growth spurt, period of accelerated growth during puberty and menarche, and then female's first menstrual period. It's all those terms, okay, for sexual development. Then social learning theory. Gender roles are acquired through the basic processes of learning, including reinforcement, punishment, and modeling. Remember that those issues from chapter 5, learning chapter? We imitate others, like modeling the behaviors from others. Or we can use reinforcement to increase the behaviors, and then use punishment to decrease the behaviors, all right? So gender schema theory, meaning gender role development is influenced by the formation of schemas or mental representations of masculinity and femininity. So here's an example, okay, of how a child forms a schema associated with gender. A girl is offered a choice of 4 toys to play with. There are 4 toys right here, toy car, doll, somehow they put orange and artichoke, okay? So who for? Boys or girls? And then she says, I'm a girl. Is it relevant to me? If it's not for me, she tends to avoid or forget. But it's for me, then it's assigned to category and remember or the approach to it. So because she is a girl, she immediately thinks that a doll is related to a girl. So I accept the girl, okay? But then if it's toy car, avoid it, okay? Then Kohlberg's theory of moral development. He assessed moral reasoning by posing hypothetical moral dilemmas and examining the reasoning behind people's answers, okay? So he proposed 6 stages, each taking into account a broader portion of the social world, okay? So we have 6 stages, but 3 levels. So each level has 2 stages, okay? First level is pre-conventional. Moral reasoning is based on external rewards and punishments. The second level is conventional. Laws and rules are upheld simply because they are laws and rules. And the third one is called post-conventional reasoning based on personal moral standards. Okay? The stage 1, obedience and punishment orientation. So that's a very basic stage. All right? A focus is on direct consequences. So negative actions will result in punishments. Positive actions will result in rewards. So let's assume that the kids didn't listen to their mommy and then their toys are removed from their room. That's punishment, okay? But then the kids are good kids to listen to their mommies. And then they say, because you have been such good kids, then you can get a little treat today. That's rewards. So that's the stage of moral development. What is good, what is wrong, okay? And then stage 2, mutual benefit. So this stage reflects the understanding that different people have different self-interest, which sometimes come in conflict. So getting what one wants often requires giving something up in return. So for instance, there are 2 kids, okay? And then they want to play with different toys. Let's say one girl had the puzzles, the other girl had dolls, but they wanted to play. The one with the puzzle wanted to play with the doll. So she approached to the other girl saying that, can I play with your doll? And then the girl might say with the girl, the doll says no, But then if she offers, I have puzzles, do you want to exchange or do you want to do it? So I can use the puzzle, the doll, and she might say yes. Okay. Okay, that's that mutual benefit stage. Okay. Then stage 3, interpersonal expectations. An attempt to live up to the expectations of important others. So positive actions will improve relations with significant others, but negative actions will harm those relationships. So your parents might be so wanting you to study computer science, okay, but then you're not interested, okay, and then you wanted to study psychology, and if you decided to just study psychology instead of computer science, you might make your parents unhappy because you didn't follow what they wanted to do. So you might have some bitter relationship. But if you decided to go for it, like computer science programming, okay? And then if you did that for them, you might not be happy, but you make them proud. You make them happy, okay? And then law and order morality. To maintain social order, people must resist personal pressures and follow the laws of the larger society. So you might be in a hurry. You wish that you can just ignore the red lights and just go through it. But you can't, and you stop, right? Because it's the red light. That's the stage, law and order morality. Make sense to you? Okay, good. Then legal principles. A balance is struck between respect for laws and ethical principles that transcend specific laws. So laws that fail to promote general welfare or that violate ethical principles can be changed, reinterpreted, or abandoned. So if the law is not protecting us, we have to change it, right? Like Massachusetts passed the law saying that, okay, no text messaging while driving, okay? Is it for saving other people's lives, right? Okay, so like that. That's the stage, okay? Okay. Then stage 6, universal moral principles, self-chosen ethical principles. So profound respect for sanctity of human life. So moral principles take precedence over laws that might conflict with them, such as conscientious objectors. Meaning human rights. You might sacrifice your life to save others. So that's the stage, universal moral principles. All right? Good. Then adult development, okay? Genetics and lifestyle combine to determine course of physical changes. Social development involves marriage and then transition to parenthood, okay? Paths of adult social development are varied and include diversity of lifestyles. We still have many middle-aged people who are not even married, but they enjoy their lives, or they might be married with many kids, different lifestyles, okay? Then late adulthood. Old age as a time of poor health, inactivity, and decline is a myth, okay? Activity theory of aging says that life satisfaction is highest when people maintain level of activity they had in earlier years. So you might still see active elderly people, like they play golf, they get together with others, okay, for lunch on a regular basis, okay, so they can be still active, okay? And death and dying, okay? That's the last stage. So in general, anxiety about dying tends to decrease in late adulthood. So Kubler-Ross stages of dying. She put 5, okay? Denial, anger, bargain, depression, acceptance. So denial is, I'm not gonna die. No way, I'm not gonna die. So they deny the death, okay? Anger. They get angry because they know that they have to die eventually, one day, okay? So why do I have to die? So upsetting. Then bargain, okay? Can I please live a couple of years more so I can see my grandchildren's face, okay? Then depression. They feel depressed because it's not gonna happen maybe, all right? They feel helpless, but then finally they accept, okay? So that's the stage that Kubler-Ross developed about dying. Yes? That's how she developed, but no, not many people follow that steps, as you knew.
Isn't there supposed to be 7?
No, it's this particular one has 5. But some people might even pass all of them, just accept. And some people might stuck in denial and anger. Or some people might accept, but then they started thinking about it, and then they might go to denial and go back to acceptance. So it depends on each person. Okay. So this is not universally demonstrated, because in some cultures, this doesn't mean bad. This meaning new life, reincarnation. So it's like rituals too. So it's a part of the rituals, it's part of the culture, so this is not the bad thing at all. Okay? So it depends. It depends on the individuals, it depends on what culture you're coming from too. All right? Any questions? Okay. So that was chapter 9. Good, guys.